$20,000. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? But here's the thing nobody tells you: once you hit that number in your bank account, something shifts. Not just your finances, your whole mindset changes. And today I'm gonna break down exactly why this number matters so much more than people realize. What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about money, saving, and building real wealth here in Canada. No fluff, no get-rich-quick nonsense, just real practical talk that actually applies to our lives up here. Today's topic is a big one: what actually happens psychologically, financially, and practically once you cross that $20,000 mark in savings. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Let's start with the most obvious shift, and that's the fact that you stop living paycheck to paycheck. When your bank account is basically empty every 2 weeks, there's this constant background hum of stress that most people don't even realize they're carrying. Every unexpected bill feels like a crisis. Your car making a weird noise sends your heart racing. A text from your landlord makes you nervous before you even open it. That's what it's like living without a cushion. But once you've built up $20,000 in savings, that anxiety starts to fade. Your car breaks down, okay, that's annoying, but it's not a catastrophe anymore. You can pay for the repair and move on with your day. An emergency medical expense comes up, you're covered. You lose your job unexpectedly, you've got months of breathing room to find something new without panicking. That mental shift alone is honestly worth more than the money itself. You stop making decisions out of fear and start making them from a place of stability, and that changes how you show up in every area of your life, not just your finances. Now here's where things get really interesting, because $20,000 isn't just a safety net, it's actually a tool. Once you hit that number, your money starts working for you instead of just sitting there doing nothing. If you park that cash in a high-interest savings account or inside your TFSA, depending on current rates, you could be earning several $100s a year in interest alone, just for having that money exist. That's income you're generating without lifting a finger. And once you're comfortable with that concept, it naturally leads you toward thinking about investing more seriously, whether that's index funds, GICs, or eventually real estate. $20,000 is often the number where people start taking their financial education seriously, because now there's actually something meaningful to protect and grow. Before that point, a lot of people don't bother learning about compound interest or investment accounts because there's nothing to invest. But once the number is real, so is the motivation to understand what to do with it. Another thing that changes, and this one surprises people, is how banks and lenders start treating you. Financial institutions look at savings as a signal of discipline and reliability. If you've got $20,000 set aside, that tells a lender you're someone who manages money responsibly, and that can translate into better interest rates on loans, smoother mortgage pre-approvals, and generally more credibility when you're applying for any kind of credit. This matters a lot here in Canada, especially with how competitive the housing market can be. Having savings isn't just about personal comfort, it's about positioning yourself for bigger financial moves down the road, whether that's buying a home, starting a business, or even just having leverage in salary negotiations because you're not desperate for the next paycheck. Now let's talk about the mental shift that happens once your emergency fund is fully built. This is honestly one of the most underrated parts of hitting this milestone. Once you know you're covered for the unexpected, your brain naturally starts shifting from survival mode into building mode. Instead of constantly thinking about how to cover next month's expenses, you start thinking bigger picture. You start asking questions like, how do I grow this money? Should I start investing more aggressively? What does retirement actually look like for me? Should I be looking into real estate? These are questions that feel impossible to even consider when you're living paycheck to paycheck, but once that foundation is set, they become the natural next step. This is the point where people start reading more about personal finance, following investing content, maybe even talking to a financial advisor for the first time. $20,000 is often the number where casual money management turns into intentional wealth building. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's confidence. When you're not constantly stressed about money, it changes how you carry yourself in every other part of your life. You negotiate better at work because you're not afraid of losing your job, you know you have options. You take smarter risks because you're not operating from a place of desperation. You make clearer, calmer decisions in relationships, in career moves, even in day-to-day interactions, because that underlying financial stress isn't clouding your judgment anymore. Financial security has this ripple effect that touches everything: your mental health, your relationships, your career trajectory, even your physical health, because stress takes a real toll on the body. So while $20,000 might seem like just a number on a screen, the truth is it represents freedom, and freedom changes how you move through the world. It's also worth mentioning that hitting this milestone often changes your relationship with spending. A lot of people assume that once you have savings, you start spending more freely, and sometimes that's true in a healthy way. You can finally afford that trip or that upgrade without guilt. But more often, what actually happens is you become more intentional. You've worked hard to build that cushion, so you start protecting it. You think twice before impulse purchases, not because you're scared, but because you understand the value of what you've built. That $20,000 becomes proof that discipline pays off, and that awareness tends to stick with people long after they hit the milestone. So if you're sitting there right now nowhere near that number, don't get discouraged. Every single person who's hit this milestone started exactly where you are, at zero, wondering if it was even possible. The key isn't some magic formula, it's consistency. Automating your savings, cutting back on the expenses that don't actually add value to your life, and treating your savings goal like a non-negotiable bill every single month. It adds up faster than you think, especially once you start earning interest on what you've already saved. So that's why hitting $20,000 in savings changes everything. It's not just a number, it's a turning point that shifts how you think, how you feel, and how you move through life. If you're currently working toward this goal, drop a comment and let me know where you're at right now. I'd genuinely love to hear it and cheer you on. And if this video gave you some value, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got a lot more real money talk coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.